This is Trial Transcripts Exposed by Crime in Court with Heather. Raw courtroom reads with my commentary. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crime in Court with Heather. This is Trial Transcripts Exposed. We are reading through the Menendez trial and we have completed the Delphi trial. So now I have more time to dedicate to the Menendez trial, and we're going to get at least 3 episodes in per week starting next week. This week you're getting 2. So because we just ended Delphi on Tuesday. So you guys are getting this bonus episode Thursday. Starting next week, you will get Menendez Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And going forward, I'm going to try to add a 4th day if we can to get through this trial a little bit faster, if my schedule allows. But right now, we're going to keep it Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, starting next week. So that is good news for you guys following along with this trial. So where we left off was December 20th of 1995. We just finished. Actually, I think there were arguments. Let me get my notes up. I think we ended on, yeah, there were some arguments outside the presence of the jury. So Eric's still on cross examination, but then they sent the jury home and they had some more arguments. We're gonna we're gonna dive right into where we left off last time, and it's the start of a new day. So it is December 21st. At 9:35 a.m. in Van Nuys, California, and the Honorable Judge Stanley Weisberg is presiding over these proceedings. So the court says, okay, the defendants are in court, the lawyers are here, the people are here, the jury is here as well. We'll have them come out, please. The jury enters the courtroom and the following proceedings were held. The court says, the jury is in court. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're ready to resume with the trial and the cross-examination of the defendant, Erik Menendez. Thank you, says Mr. Conn. Just as a reminder, we have several parts left of Erik. We're on 56. I can't remember, but he has several parts left because he was on the stand for 7 straight days. In this trial, he was on the stand for 8 days in the first trial, so altogether he did 15 days on the stand, basically being re-victimized, having to go over the details of all of his horrific abuse his whole life. So there's that. All right, so let's get started with cross-examination by Mr. Conn and Erik on the stand. Mr. Menendez, on Friday night, when you were carrying the shotgun in your tennis bag to your bedroom, you indicated that you walked up the stairs and were going to turn left to go into the bedroom. Is that correct? That's what I did. And you indicated that you were not concerned at the time that your mother might be able to use her powers to figure out what was inside your bag? Didn't cross my mind. Now, concerning your belief in your mother's powers, did you feel that she had powers to do certain things and not other things? Objection, vague. It is vague. The court says, do you understand the question? Yes. You can answer it. You know, when your attorney objects, you should probably be like, maybe you should ask it another way. Because maybe there's a reason why your attorney objected. The witness says he can answer it, so the court says answer it. The witness says, I simply believed that she had an ability to know things in my life that she could not know. I didn't believe she had powers or had magical abilities. It was simply something that I couldn't reconcile with what I believed. When you say that you had the belief that she had the power to know things in your life, you told us yesterday that you believed that she had some power that went beyond the ordinary 5 senses. Is that correct? That's the only conclusion that I could come to. Okay. So you did believe that she had some extraordinary power, is that right? Yes. Objection asked and answered, Your Honor. Overruled. The answer will stand. Think he should stop asking the question, though. Mr. Conn says, and if you felt that she had some extraordinary power to know what was going on in your life, why would what you are carrying in your bag not be one of the things that she might know about in your life? Objection, argumentative. Rephrase the question, says the court. Mr. Khan says, yes. Did you believe that if she had the power to know things about your life, that she might be able to know what was contained inside your bag? When I was walking up the stairs on Friday night? Yes. I didn't believe that her power, if you call it that, had anything to do with how close I was to her at the time, which was something that I couldn't reconcile within myself and wasn't in my mind every second. I just didn't think about it at the time. I was concerned about getting to my room before my dad walked out of the room or my mom walked out of the room. I just wanted to get up the stairs. It was dark and go to bed, go straight to my bedroom. Well, at that time, that weekend, from the time that you decided to buy the shotguns up until the time that you shot your parents to death, did it occur to you that because your mother had certain powers, she might be able to determine either that you had a shotgun in your possession or that you were armed and ready to use that against your parents? Probably. So you felt that she was able to determine that? I don't remember feeling that, but probably it crossed my mind. You're telling us that you're not sure if you believed that your mother would be able to know that you were armed with a weapon. Objection, argumentative, sustained. Are you saying that you are not sure if you realized that sometime that weekend? Objection, argumentative to the form of the question. The court says, I hadn't heard the full question yet. Mr. Khan says, are you saying that you were not sure if you realized sometime that weekend that your mother was able to know what you and your brother were up to? Same objection, overruled. What I'm saying is that this wasn't a belief and a knowledge that I would swear upon and that I would say was absolute in terms of me thinking she had powers. I could believe she had powers, and yet I couldn't see any other way. And I didn't believe that anything I did in my life, my mother would absolutely find out about. That wasn't true. She just knew certain things where she couldn't know. And it wasn't something, it's very difficult to describe, but it wasn't a sure feeling. It's one of those feelings like, so you had a personal conversation with somebody on your, what you thought was a private line. You thought your mom wasn't on it, but she was eavesdropping the whole time. And so when later that week, when you talk about such and such person, she makes a comment about something you may have said to them, then you're like, how did she know that? So that was what was going on with Erik. Little things like that where she would slip and say something that she knew about that she wasn't supposed to know about, like a conversation he had, or maybe something he wrote down in a diary or something. She was snooping, she was eavesdropping, she was listening, she was definitely monitoring her children when they weren't around. She was poking and prodding into their privacy. So that is what he's talking about. Why this attorney keeps saying, "Oh, it's magical powers, it's magical powers." Like, dude, move on. Why are we still he's already explained he thought it was strange, he didn't know how it was happening, but now we know she was like she was listening in on his phone calls. She was snooping through his things. Now we know that. But he didn't actually understand that at the time. All right, Mr. Khan says, Mr. Menendez, haven't you previously testified in both this trial and the last trial that you believed that your mother had some extraordinary power? Yes. Did it occur to you any time that weekend that she might be able to use that extraordinary power to determine what you and your brother were up to? Objection asked and answered. Sustained. This has been gone into. Thank you. Finally, he's already answered that. I don't know how many times. Did you ever say to your brother, perhaps we should abandon this plan because our mother's ability to know things in my life? No. Why not? I don't know. I just didn't. Okay. It's not like you stop living your life and stop doing things because you think your parents have some superpower or something. You still are if you have an opportunity to make your life a little bit better, you're going to try, right? So then you woke up on Saturday and you decided that day that you were going to do two things, go to the mall and, well, did you decide that you were going to go to the mall that day? I don't remember deciding to go to the mall. I know that I had a conversation with my brother in his guest house after I woke up and we wanted to leave the house because we just wanted to show up late for the fishing trip. I don't specifically remember wanting to go to the mall. Now, when you saw your brother Saturday morning, you had already had that time, the one full day to go to the police. Is that correct? Since the time of the dispute with your father on Thursday? Yes. Okay. And did either you or your brother say to each other, in light of the fact that our father still hasn't killed us after giving us one full day of an opportunity to go to the police, that may be an indication that he's not going to kill us? Can you tell us why you never raised that issue with your brother? I can't tell you why. I didn't. I didn't think going to the police at the time was considered an option. I just didn't. He's answered this already, too. My question was not whether you thought of going to the police or not. My question focused on whether you or your brother considered the fact that since your father hadn't killed you at that time Friday when you had an opportunity to go to the police, whether that caused you to believe that perhaps your father is not going to kill you after all. Objection, argumentative, overruled. Erik says, if I went to the police, he would certainly kill me at that point. So I didn't believe he would kill me. Why would I go to the police? So if I didn't believe he would kill me, why would I go to the police? Do you understand the question I am asking you, Mr. Menendez? Vague, asked to be restated. The court says, why don't you rephrase the question? He says, yes. I am questioning whether you and your brother considered the following issue. Since your father had not killed you on Friday when you had an opportunity to go to the police, that was an indication perhaps that your father was not going to kill you at all. Did you consider that issue Saturday? Objection. It's argumentative, what he indicated. The court says just ask the question as to what he considered on Saturday morning without the preface. Yes. Did you consider that issue Saturday morning? What exactly is the issue? The fact that your father had not killed you or attacked you at any time, and whether that was an indication to you that your father was not going to kill you. No, it was not an indication to me that he was not going to kill me. So that was in no way considered or discussed by you and your brother at any time on Saturday, is that correct? On Saturday, I was concerned about the fishing trip. I wasn't concerned about what happened on Friday. So did you leave the main house on Saturday morning to go over and see your brother in the guest house on Saturday? Yes. Was it decided at that time that you were going to go to the mall? I don't remember deciding to go to the mall. What was your purpose to go to the guest house Saturday morning? To talk to my brother. Did you bring a weapon with you when you left your room? No. Where was your weapon? It was in my room. And where in your room did you leave your gun? At night, I kept it in my bed. When I left the house, I kept it in my closet unless I took it with me. He's lucky that in those couple days that Kitty didn't find it when she was snooping in their things. Where inside your closet did you keep your gun? On the floor behind a lot of, I don't know if there were boxes. There was a lot of stuff on the floor, and I also have a memory of putting it on one of the shelves behind sweaters and clothing as well one time. Well, what do you mean one time? Are you saying that you left it in your closet more than once when you left the house? I left it in my closet when I woke up on Saturday morning before I left the house, and I took it with me when I left the house and left it in my closet on Sunday. So you're saying one time when you left it in your closet, you left it on the floor, and another time you left it in your closet on the shelves. I remember more leaving it on the floor than putting it on top. I don't know if it was a thought to put it up on top or if it was a thing I actually did. but I remember certainly putting it on the floor behind a lot of stuff. When you say you put it behind a lot of stuff, what was covering your gun? I no longer remember what was on the floor of my closet. Was it clothing? I don't know if it was clothing or boxes or a beanbag or what it was, but it was just stuff on the floor. But you covered it up in some way? Yes. Were you concerned that your mother or your father might look inside your closet? That they would ransack my closet and go through everything? Not ransack, just look in your closet. Were you concerned at all that they might look inside your closet? The thought occurred to me that my mom might come into my room, which is why I hid it in the closet. But you had no concern whatsoever that your mother might look in your closet? Look in my closet well enough other than just glance inside of it? Did you have any concern about your mother looking in your closet? I don't remember. I don't remember that concern. And did you feel that, however, if you covered it up, it would be sufficient to seal it from your parents so that they would not be able to find it? Pretty much. Was your gun still loaded? Yes. And you indicated you had loaded it with 2 rounds of birdshot. Is that correct? Yes. Is that because you put in 1 round for your mother and 1 round for your father? What a stupid question. No. Then why only two? I just thought two would be a lot. Well, how did you break that down in your mind? Why would two be a lot? I just put in 2 shells so that I could fire them in case I was attacked, and 2 shells just seemed to be a lot. I don't know why I didn't load more. Well, did you feel that that would be sufficient to stop your parents? On Friday, I did. And you didn't question your brother Lyle Menendez as to how many shells he had loaded in his? I don't remember doing so. And Friday night, he slept in the guest house. Is that correct? Right. And you knew that if your parents were to attack you in the main house, that would you would be alone. Is that correct? Exactly. And you never did it occur to you that maybe you should put in a third shell or a fourth shell just for good measure? Why? What's the point of some of these questions? They're so dumb. I didn't think about that. I just thought about the fact that I didn't want to sleep in the main house and that I wanted to sleep in the guest house and to take my gun with me when I went. And that time it didn't occur to me to put more in. Okay. And so when you after how long did you speak to your brother at the guest house Saturday morning before you left? I don't remember how long. I don't believe it was long. Did you have to come back to the guest house to get something before you left? You mean the main house? Yeah, the main house. I know that when we decided to leave, I took my gun with me. Did you tell your brother that you were going to go back to the main house and get your gun? I don't remember. So you came back to the guest house. You went in your main house. You went in your closet and then you took the gun out. I came back from the guest house into the main house. Thank you for correcting him. And went into my closet and took my gun. When your gun was inside the closet, was it inside a bag? I don't remember. I know that it wasn't inside a bag when it was under my bed. I don't remember if I put it inside the bag when I put it in the closet. I may have. So then, in any event, as you were going out your bedroom door now with your gun, it was inside the bag once again. Yes. Where were your parents at this time? I believe they were in their bedroom. What time of day was that? About 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning is my best recollection. Okay, and once again, you walked down the stairs carrying your bag with the gun inside of it. Yes. And when you got in the car, did you, well, let me ask you this. You brought your gun along because you wanted to do that. To do what with your gun? I'm not sure when I thought what. Uh, I know that someone in or sometime at the mall, when I was looking up for a gun store, the fright of it and having it and not knowing how to shoot it, never shooting it before, and I wanted to talk to somebody about that. And I know that my brother had a concern about the shells that we had bought the day before, whether they were exactly the right shells or not. At some point, either at some point, I either discussed it that morning or on Friday night. I just remember having that thought. Let me repeat the question. When you took your gun with you from your house, what was the reason for taking your gun with you? I don't remember specifically because I don't remember at the time what I thought. Well, you took your gun from your house because you wanted to target practice with it. Is that correct? I know that I wanted to when I was at the mall later. I may have thought that on Saturday morning, and that's why I took the gun. I just don't remember for sure about that. Did you have any other reason to take your gun from the house other than target practice? I don't know. So you don't know why you took the gun with you that morning? What I'm saying is I can't recall specifically why. So you took this gun with you, and did you ask your brother at any time if he was bringing his gun along? I know that he didn't bring his gun. I don't remember. I'm sure that we discussed it. I don't remember the discussion. So it was at the mall that you decided, to your recollection, that you wanted to find a place where you could practice shooting that gun. No. I know that I know that when I was looking up a store, it was in my mind to find a store that had a range attached to it so I could do that. He was trying to find a store within the mall or somewhere near the area where he could go to a shooting range. But I don't remember how long that thought was in my mind when I was there. At some point, your brother raised the issue of purchasing more ammunition. Not so much purchasing more ammunition as to finding out if the shells were specifically the right shells. Okay. And what was it that suddenly caused doubts about the ammunition that you had purchased yesterday? I'm not sure. I don't know why. Probably just the reality of the situation. What do you mean, the reality of the situation? Being back at home versus being in San Diego, having the fear level there, and just being uncertain about a lot of things. And I know I got insecure about the gun, whether or not I could fire it, whether or not I really knew how to fire it. And did either you or your brother say to each other that morning, I picked out this ammunition because I believe that this is the correct kind? We didn't believe it was the correct kind of ammunition. And you were satisfied at the time that it was the correct type of ammunition, weren't you? Yes. And who was it that first raised the issue of maybe you bought the wrong kind of ammunition after all? I believe it was Lyle. Did you ask him what makes you think that? We were both satisfied yesterday that this was the right kind of ammo. I don't believe we discussed it with anyone at the Big Five in San Diego, and I know when I was in my bedroom on Friday, I felt very insecure, and I felt very insecure not knowing how much the gun, other than what had been explained to me, not knowing much about the gun, sorry, not knowing much about the gun other than what had been explained to me. So I was all for learning anything more that I could since we were trying to be out of the house anyways. So we're out of the house, staying away because we want to be late on the fishing trip. So we might as well go and just check and see if we got the right ammo for these rifles or shotguns. When was it that you felt very insecure? Friday night. You were lying in your bed thinking about using that gun? I was lying in my bed thinking, if they come to my door, use the gun. I remember I held the gun with me. I was kind of insecure whether I really knew how to use this. I'm going to bring up a concept that's in psychology called folie à deux, which is when two people who, I wonder if this has ever come up in this case. I don't recall it ever coming up, but it's when two people who have suffered abuse, usually it's like years of long-term abuse you suffer, and then you kind of have like the same delusions, the same ideations, and they could be totally like psychotic, grandiose, like outside of the realm of reality. And it's very possible that they could have been feeling this because of the heightened stress and everything, that maybe the two of them kind of made it up in their heads that the parents were going to be, react in some violent way. Perhaps it's a folie à deux on top of the long-term years of abuse and everything, and the threats that Jose always said he would kill Erik and whoever he told. So I don't know. It's just a concept that is coming to me as we're reading through this and what the brothers are doing in real time when they're, panicking. And I'm just wondering if maybe they're like their conversations and the way that they're behaving, the things that they're doing is maybe uh piling on the stress, the anxiety, and so they're creating a situation to be much more dire in their heads than it really is. There's actually another case, I can't remember what it was, but there was a case of two women who were like raised together kind of like in an attic or something. I can't remember the whole details, but they committed murder, and basically it was like because they were having all this abuse happen to them, but they like I don't remember. I can't remember all the details, but it was something like that. And folie à deux is, when two people are within that same delusion or yeah, I hope you know what I'm saying. So it's possible that maybe the things they were saying, the way that they were behaving, the stress of Erik, and then, piling that on with, telling Lyle, and it just kind of created a situation where were, they just both had this idea that they were going to die. It's very, very possible. I don't think it was ever brought up in either trial, but we'll see if it comes up in this trial. I don't remember it coming up in the first trial. All right. The next question here. Sorry about that little tangent. So you were contemplating in your own mind your ability to shoot the weapon. Is that correct? I don't know if contemplating is the right word. It just was a thought. I was very anxious and very uneasy with this gun. I had never held a rifle or shot a gun before, and holding it made me feel uneasy. And just everything about it. I suddenly was getting insecure about it. You had thoughts about shooting the weapon as you were lying in bed on Friday night? I don't know if I could call them shots, thoughts of shooting the rifle. And you question your ability and your accuracy in using that weapon. No, you didn't. No. Then what was it that you were questioning concerning your performance in the use of that weapon? I was concerning whether I could even fire the gun in terms of it. Do you know everything? Do I know everything to do? If they come into the room, I wasn't even sure about the safety or anything. I mean, I didn't know anything really about the gun other than what had been explained to me in a 5 minute or 10-minute little speech. But I felt very insecure just being at that house and being alone with my brother in the guest house. And the gun didn't make me feel secure enough. Mr. Menendez, yesterday you told us that it was relatively simple weapon to load. Is that correct? It was. And you had no problem figuring out how to put those rounds inside and operating the safety. Isn't that what you said yesterday? Like I said, I don't remember the safety, but it was simple in terms of loading it. Making sure that it's right and that you've got everything in its right order is very different when it's late at night and it's on Friday and I'm thinking about mom and dad coming into the room and I'm thinking about using it. It's very different when you're like looking at it and there's no immediate threat on your life versus when you've got to load it and shoot it at somebody because your life is being threatened or your personal safety is being threatened. Well, how about on Saturday morning? Did you realize on Saturday morning that now that the gun is fully loaded, all you've got to do is point it and pull the trigger? Objection misstates his evidence or misstates his testimony. Rephrase the question, says the court. Did it occur to you on Saturday morning that all you have to do is point and pull the trigger? Objection assumes facts, not an evidence. Overruled. Right. That's what I thought on Friday, and that's what I thought on Saturday. Friday night, I was insecure about that and wasn't absolutely certain. It just made me feel uneasy that I had never fired a gun before, and I'm just telling you that was my thought. And you began to have these thoughts in your mind Friday night, is that correct? Objection, vague with respect to what thoughts? Sustained. You began to have thoughts about your ability to operate that weapon Friday night, is that correct? Yes. And did you have thoughts in your mind about the adequacy of the ammunition on Friday night? I don't remember that. Well, while you were having these thoughts about how the weapon worked and your ability to use the weapon, did you have any thoughts Friday night about under what circumstances would I actually shoot my parents? How would I know for sure? It was only in my mind one way. I mean, that was them coming through the door. This just shows me he's terrified of even interacting with his parents. He doesn't even want his parents to come into his room. He's ready to shoot the instant that they do because he's terrified of what's going to happen when his parents are with him face to face. Someone who is faking or trying to plot a murder because they want their parents or they want their inheritance, that's not going to be the first thing on their mind. The fact that he keeps going to that, he was in extreme, like paralyzing fear, is all I can think of. To be laying in there in his bed with his gun, hoping that his parents don't come to the door the whole night until he can actually get some sleep. I, I hope. But that's how I picture his entire night. Just pretty much laying in bed or sitting in bed, hugging the gun and hoping that he doesn't have to use it. So he says it was only in my mind one way. I mean, that was them coming from through the door. I didn't think about any other. So you spent a lot more time thinking about operating that weapon than you did thinking about whether or not and under what circumstances you would shoot your parents. Is that what you're saying? Objection, argumentative, says Levin. The court says sustained. Mr. Conn says, did you have any questions Saturday morning before you went to see your brother at the guest house about when should you shoot your parents and under what circumstances? Saturday morning? Yes. No. But Saturday morning, were you still thinking about the operation of the weapon? I wasn't thinking about it. It was just a concern. I had the concern from then on. It was a concern about which you did not have any thoughts. Is that what you're telling us? No, it's a concern which I didn't contemplate and I think over on Saturday morning. It was a concern on Saturday morning and I don't know what else to tell you. Now Saturday morning, you wanted to be able to shoot your mother and father as quickly and accurately as you could. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative and misstates his testimony. Sustained. Mr. Conn says, was one of your concerns Saturday morning your ability to shoot your parents quickly and accurately? No. You wanted to be able to make sure that you would be able to kill them if necessary. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative, overruled, says the court. Erik says, no. Mr. Conn says, you wanted to be sure that you could reliably shoot them if necessary. Is that correct? These thoughts just weren't in my mind. Then what was the purpose of going out to a gun range that day? Because I was not sure how to fire the gun if I knew how to fire the gun. I remember thinking that at the mall when I was flipping through the pages and looking for a store. You wanted to be able to fire the gun properly so that you could shoot your parents. Is that correct? I didn't want to shoot my parents. Get it through your sick. No, get it through your thick skull. He did not want to shoot his parents. This wasn't premeditated, but keep going with your story, prosecutor. You wanted to be able to fire the gun properly in order to shoot your parents. Is that correct? I don't understand what you mean. Why did you purchase the guns, Mr. Menendez? Basically, for the reason you're saying. To shoot your parents if necessary, right? Yes. Okay, now you wanted to be sure that when it came to shoot them that you would be able to do it right. Is that correct? I don't think that that's what I was thinking. I remember my fear was if they come through the door, is this gun going to even go off if I pull the trigger? I didn't know. I had never fired it, but it was a concern. I was very uneasy and I was anxious that night, and that's all I'm trying to say to you. When you were coming back from San Diego the previous day, you were satisfied that you had a gun that was in operable condition and that you could use to shoot your parents. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative. Overruled, says the court. Was I satisfied? I suppose I really didn't think about it at the time. Mr. Menendez, weren't you concerned about your safety that weekend? Yes. And you're telling us that you did not think about whether or not your gun was operable Friday as you were coming back from San Diego? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Are you saying that you did not think about whether your gun was operable as you were coming back from San Diego on Friday? I am saying I just assumed that it was operable. I wasn't faced with the situation of using it, so I didn't think about it. I just assumed that it was. That assumption that the gun was operable was based upon the information that you picked up from talking to several people in the gun store. Is that correct? There were two different gun stores. Is that correct? Yes. And it was also based upon your apparent ability to hold the gun and operate the safety. Is that correct? I don't remember the safety, but I remember the loading was simple. Okay. And so are you telling us that you no longer had that same assumption that this was an operable gun that you can operate on Saturday morning? What I'm saying is that when I'm coming back from San Diego and I was actually inside my house at night, locked in my room, that I didn't feel as uneasy. And on Friday night, when I was thinking about this, what if they come? What if they come now? And suddenly these thoughts start just racing through my mind without effort. And it made me insecure. And on Saturday morning, I was still insecure about that. And did you intend to what did you intend to do at that range that day? See if I could fire the gun. I absolutely knew that. I knew how to fire them. And shoot at targets? I had never been to a range before. I didn't know what a range was. Did you think you were just going to be shooting into a wall without targets? I don't know. I assumed that you would learn how to fire a gun, and that's what's the purpose of the ranges. And then you didn't want to. You wanted to be sure that when it came time to shoot your parents, you would be able to hit them. Is that correct? Objection misstates his testimony. Overruled. I wanted to be sure that if I pointed the gun, I could fire it. And you doubted whether you could simply fire a gun Saturday morning. Is that what you're telling us? Yes. Now, as you were going to the mall with your brother, or as you were going to the range with your brother, did either you or your brother say to each other, "This is getting out of hand. Now we're practicing to fire the weapon. It's time to move out"? Did you have that conversation? The whole situation was out of hand. The whole weekend was out of hand. That did not occur. It didn't occur to you to move out until things calmed down. Is that correct? No. And you knew that the more you hung around, the greater likelihood there was that eventually there was going to be a shootout in your house. Is that correct? No. Objection argumentative. Sustained. The answer is stricken. Did you feel that the longer you and your brother hung around, the greater likelihood there would be that someone was going to shoot someone? No. Why not? I knew that staying there meant the situation was going to be resolved. Running away was absolutely just going to bring it to a head, and there could be only one result. But staying there, the situation was going to be resolved, and I was just waiting for any signs of talking, and I just didn't think that I could leave, and so there wasn't anything else to do. I was waiting for an opportunity for the family to get together and be like, okay, well, here's what's going to happen now. We're not going to kill you, but blah, blah, blah. But of course, that wasn't going to happen. But that's what he was looking for, or at least some kind of conversation between him and his parents to show that things were good. But that never really occurred because they avoided him for those couple of days. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor, assumes facts, not an evidence. Did you decide to go to the range before and after there was a conversation concerning additional ammo? Then he objects. The court sustains that as to the form of the question. Mr. Conn says, at some point, was there a discussion between you and your brother concerning ammunition? Concerning whether the shells we had were the right shells. Okay. And did that take place before or after you started looking for a range to shoot your weapon? I believe it was before. Okay. When you looked for a place where you could both purchase ammunition and use your gun, is that correct? Essentially, yes. And you found such a place? Yes. And what happened when you got to that place? I went inside the store, and it was a small gun store, and talked to the clerk or the manager or the owner behind the desk. What did you learn at that location? That the firing range that was across the street, you could not fire any shotguns in. Did you ever go to the range itself? No. So you just stayed there in the portion of the store where they sell ammo? Yes. And there was a conversation between yourself and the gun store owner concerning ammo? Yes. What did that conversation consist of? It consisted of him asking what the purpose of it was in terms of hunting or for home protection. And we said it was for home protection for burglars, this and that. And we asked him if birdshot or dove shot, I don't remember what I called these shots at the time, same thing. And he just explained that birdshot wasn't good for that and wouldn't stop a person and that we should use buckshot that he picked out. Did the conversation begin with you or your brother telling him that you had already purchased birdshot? Yes. And this person in the store told you that it wouldn't stop a person or that it wouldn't stop a person as effectively as buckshot. I don't remember. I wouldn't stop it wouldn't stop a person is what I got out of the conversation. Did you remember or did you believe him when you heard that birdshot could not stop a person? Yes. Why did you believe that birdshot fired from a shotgun would not stop a person? Because he knew better than I, right? He's the expert. And you don't remember the name of the man, do you? You know the name of, you know the store I was at. I know? You know the day I was there. I know? Yes. How do I know? Objection, argumentative, overruled. The witness says, because I'm telling you what store it was. It was a store in Van Nuys, a small store with a target range across the street. And what was the name of the man? I don't know what the man's name is. Is there a man that can identify you? Objection, speculation, sustained. Is there a man that you can identify? I have never seen the man before or after in my life, but on August, I guess 19th, the man that was working that day is the man we talked to. So he's saying you could have found that out, but your investigators didn't do the work. So that's not on me. You can't give us the name of the man that told you the birdshot will not stop a person. Is that correct? That's what I remember him saying, that it was the wrong type of ammunition to use in that situation. And after looking at the photographs of your mother, you realize that birdshot can stop a person? Yes. And you feel that that man lied to you? Objection, argumentative, sustained to the form of the question. Did you really have this conversation? It was absolutely at the store. So now he's like questioning him. Was that real? Come on, you're just making that up now. This guy's rude. And so he told you that birdshot was essentially useless. Is that correct? That's what I got out of the conversation. Now, as you and your brother were reevaluating the type of ammunition that you were going to use to possibly shoot your parents, did you reevaluate whether you should continue to go home and place yourself in that situation? Objection, argumentative. Also, it's been asked and answered like a bajillion times. They didn't think to leave the house because Jose would find them. Well, Lyle wanted to leave. Erik didn't. Erik thought that Jose would always find him. Overruled. The witness says, I know that we wanted to arrive home late for the fishing trip because we didn't really want to go to the fishing trip. I'm talking about whether you reevaluated whether or not you should return home at all. No. So you purchased a box of buckshot at that time, is that correct? I have no. I purchased buckshot. That's the only thing that sticks out in my mind. And the box of buckshot contained 10 rounds, is that correct? I don't remember specifically. Well, you previously testified you purchased one box containing 10 rounds, didn't you? If 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 I did, then I did. I might have remembered better 2 years ago. So you don't know if you did or did not. Is that correct? I don't remember how many rounds the box of buckshot had anymore. Mr. Conn directs him, volume 94, page 15794. Mr. Levin says, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the site, counsel. Volume 94, page 15794, lines 11 through 18. Miss Abramson says, just a second, counsel. Levin says, lines 11 through 18. Miss Abramson says, is this for refreshing recollection, Your Honor? It should be shown to the witness since the witness is not denying it. Mr. Levin says, I adopt that, Your Honor. The court says, well, he can examine him by cross-examination here without refreshing his recollection. Mr. Conn says, Mr. Menendez, do you remember being asked the following question and giving the following answers at the first trial? Question. Now, did you, after purchasing the buckshot, by the way, how many boxes of buckshot were purchased at the Van Nuys gun store? Answer, 1. Question, how many rounds, if you remember, were in that box? Mr. Levin says, in that one box, Your Honor, he misstated the question. Mr. Conn says, I will read that again. And how many rounds, if you remember, were in that one box? Answer, 10. The witness says, may I see it? Are you looking for something? Says the attorney, Mr. Conn, and Erik says, I just was cross-examined and examined on these issues so many times that I was looking to see if it went on further or if it was just one time. Was that your testimony in the first trial that you purchased one box of buckshot and there were 10 rounds in that one box? I know that's what I said there is. My question is, was that your testimony? And I said that I said that when I asked what I was asked then. Yes. So that was your best recollection of at the time. Is that correct? I believe so. And is that your recollection today? Objection with respect to what his recollection is today. Rephrase the question. What is your recollection today concerning what you purchased that day? What I'm saying is I don't know. It was 6 years ago. I know that 10 rounds of buckshot were fired, or at least that's what I thought. And so maybe that's why I thought there were 10 rounds in the box. Maybe there were 10 rounds in the box. I have no idea. I just know that I purchased buckshot there that day. And that's what I know. Now, after you purchased the buckshot, where did you go? I don't remember specifically. I know that I arrived home and about an hour after we were supposed to be there. What time were you supposed to be home to go on the fishing trip? I don't recollect the exact time. My memory is that it was sometime around 2:30 or 3 o'clock. And so you arrived home sometime around 3:30 or 4 o'clock? Yes. So you were somewhere between a half hour to an hour late. I remember being about an hour late. Were you intentionally late? Yes. Why? Because we didn't want to go to the fishing trip and we were hoping that maybe they would leave without us. We wouldn't reasonably be more than an hour late without there being a serious problem about it. So if they were any later, then they'd really have it. Now, you thought that you might be killed on this trip, is that correct? Yes. And you were planning on taking your shotguns along on the trip with you? I didn't know on that at that point. It depended on what happened. I was hoping not to go on the fishing trip at all. My question is, before you went home that Saturday, were you planning on taking shotguns with you if you were to go on that trip? I don't know. Are you saying, Mr. Menendez, that you felt that there was a possibility that you might be able to carry on your tennis bags with the shotguns in them when you went on the fishing trip? Objection, argumentative, overruled. I don't know. Well, did you and your brother discuss the possibility of carrying on tennis bags containing shotguns into the little boat? It wasn't supposed to be a little boat. I don't remember doing that. I know that the situation as it presented itself in front of the house did not give us the chance to do that because they arrived home and it was like, get in the car. I did not have the ability to take the bag over to the car. We were gone straight to the car and it was a rush situation. I know that we thought about what happens if it's just dad and my mom on the boat and not going on the boat if we got to the marina. I don't remember the guns. I am not asking you what happened when you got home. I'm asking you, as you were out with your brother that day in the mall and in the range and in the gun store, did you discuss with your brother whether or not you would be able to go on the boat carrying tennis bags with shotguns in them? I don't remember discussing it with him, no. What was your belief concerning whether or not you would be able to go on the boat carrying bags with shotguns in them? Objection assumes he had a belief. Overruled. I thought I probably would not be able to do that. Okay, and are you telling us that although you felt that you would probably not be able to do that, you never once, any time that day, turned to your brother and said, you know, Lyle, I don't think we're going to be able to take the shotguns on the boat with us? I may well have said that, I just don't remember. Well, wasn't it important for you to stay alive that weekend? It was very important to stay alive, but I don't know what that has to do with whether or not I asked my brother, if I told my brother my worry and my concern at that point. I just don't remember saying it. You felt that you and your brother were in the same situation of danger, is that correct? Yes. And are you telling us that you didn't share your thoughts with him concerning whether or not you might have to go unarmed on the boat with the people that you believe were going to kill you? Objection, argumentative, says Levin. The court says sustained. Is it your testimony, Mr. Menendez, that you did not discuss with your brother at any time whether or not you would be able to take the guns on the boat? No. Then what is your testimony in that regard? Objection, it's been asked and answered. Overruled, says the court. That I had a feeling that it would probably not be able to happen. I don't remember saying it to my brother. I may very well have. I just can't recall it. Mr. Conn says, so recognizing, as you say that you did, uh, that you would probably not be able to get on the boat with your shotgun, did you conclude in your own mind that there was no way you were going to go on that boat and give your father an opportunity to kill you? No. Why not? Because by running, everything was going to come to a head. It was absolutely going to kill me. I know that it was in my mind that if we got to the boat and it was just my parents going on out on that boat alone with us, that it I did not want to go on the boat. And I probably would not go on the boat, and at that point I would run. So you're saying you wanted to wait and see how many people were there, and then depending on who else was present, you would make a determination at that time whether or not you were going to go on the boat. Objection, argumentative. Sustained. Are you saying that you were going to make a final determination as to whether or not you would get on the boat once you arrived at the marina? Essentially, I didn't want to get on the trip. If I was forced to go on the trip, I was making quick decisions at every step, and certainly that was in my mind, yes. And that was your decision at that time. You were going to wait until you got to the marina and made a final decision. I didn't want to wait to get to the marina. I didn't want to go on the trip in the first place. Well, did you feel that it might be more difficult to avoid getting on the boat once you arrived at the marina in the company of your parents than it would be if you just didn't get home in time? It's a very confusing question. Not getting home in time is what we did. Not getting home at all would mean that the situation would be brought to a head immediately. At the marina, I thought there would be people around and that I didn't want to get on the boat at that point. If I chose not to get on the boat, that means I absolutely believed that I would be killed no matter what, and at that point, I might as well run because I am going to be killed either way. That's not the question I'm asking, Mr. Menendez. Let me re-ask the question. Did you feel it would be more difficult to avoid getting on the boat if you went to the marina with your father than if you simply arrived home late and didn't go to the marina with your father at all? That's impossible to answer. Why is that impossible to answer? Yes, not getting home would not be a difficult thing to do. It would be a choice. I either go home or I don't. There is no difficulty in the action, only in the thinking about it. In the terms of actually physically getting away from my parents at the marina, that is not a matter of difficulty compared to getting home is what I am trying to say. To get away from your parents at the marina, once you were present, you would just have to walk away from them and absolutely refuse to get on the boat. Isn't that correct? Objection, argumentative, overruled. I don't know how it was going to be, but if I thought I was absolutely going to die on that boat, I was not going to get on the boat. Mr. Menendez, you were concerned about not bringing things to a head. Isn't that the term that you used? Right. And did you feel that if you went to the marina and decided not to get on the boat, that you would avoid getting on the boat without really bringing things to a head at that point? Well, if I decided not to go on the boat at that point, that meant that I knew I was going to die on the boat. So you might as well run because I'm going to die either way. But I didn't want to just run away and not get home and go to the marina because at that point the decision would be made. I was hoping that nothing would happen on the boat. I didn't know that absolutely something would. He's answered the question twice now. It's not the answer that Mr. Conn wants, but he's answered the question. Well, wouldn't the best way to avoid the situation altogether be to just wait until late in the day when you knew your parents would absolutely gone and then arrive home late and miss the trip altogether? Objection, argumentative, overruled. Erik says, I could not do that. Why not? Arriving any later than an hour was something that I just couldn't do it. So you wanted to arrive an hour late, but no later than an hour, is that correct? I figured an hour I could get away with. Why did you feel that you could get away with arriving home an hour after your father had already left for the marina? Well, if he had left for the marina, then it didn't matter if I got home 5 minutes later. I didn't know if he had left for the marina. Why did you feel you could get away with arriving home 1 hour late? Because I figured I could have an excuse for arriving home an hour late, but arriving 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours late, it's pretty obvious. I am making a conscious decision not to go on the trip, and my parents would realize that. An hour late, I could say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't know what I was doing. How would your parents know if you got home an hour late? If they hadn't, I needed an excuse. If they hadn't left for the marina, which they didn't, so he did need to be there an hour, and I showed up 3 or 4 hours late, pretty much I was in trouble. But you realized that your parents were going to go to the marina that day. Is that correct? That's what I thought. Yes. And you believed you were going to go to the marina whether or not you got in late. Isn't that true? No, I didn't know. So are you saying that you concluded in your own mind that if you were late, your parents would therefore stay and wait for you as long as it took? I was hoping they weren't. But did you conclude that they were? I concluded that probably they were going to wait. So if you concluded that they were probably going to wait anyways, then why arrive home an hour late? They would just be waiting for you. Because I was hoping that they hadn't. And if they wouldn't be waiting for you, then it didn't matter whether you got home 1 hour late or 3 hours late because they'd be gone in any event. Isn't that correct? Objection, argumentative, overruled. I don't think you understand what I'm saying at all, says Eric. Mr. Conn says, just answer the question. I understand you very well, Mr. Menendez. Whoa. The court says, all right, let's not have these remarks. The comment of counsel is stricken. Good, 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 good. That was a little uncalled for. Eric says, if they had already left for the marina, it wouldn't matter whether I got home an hour or 5 minutes or 4 hours late. You're right. But if they hadn't left for the marina, it would matter. And indeed, they hadn't left yet, so 1 hour was okay. The parents were mad, but not like hopping mad. So it was like, get in the car, let's go. We don't have time to be mad at you, basically. So it's a good thing that they didn't try to make them wait longer because they probably would have gotten more angry. Mr. Khan says, and so what you decided to do was to be a little late, but not too late. Is that correct? Right. And you didn't know for sure whether they were going to be gone by that time you got home. Is that correct? Right. Even if you were 1 hour late, you didn't know for sure they were going to be gone. Is that correct? Right. So did you tell your brother Lyle, rather than just rush right into your driveway in your car, perhaps you ought to stay a distance away from the house and eye it from a distance and see if their car was still in the driveway? When we were driving up the street, my mom was walking out of the front door and she saw us. At that point, I had to pull in the driveway. Even if they waited an hour, didn't mean absolutely that we were going to die on the fishing trip. No. What I'm asking you, Mr. Menendez, is something different. Did you have a conversation with your brother Lyle Menendez in which you said to him, since we don't know for sure if our parents will have gone to the marina, to be on the safe side, why don't we stay some distance away from the house and look to see if their car is still there? And then we'll know whether or not it's safe to go into the driveway. No. Why didn't you have that conversation, Mr. Menendez? These are all questions like after the fact when they're not, you know, in the throes of like anxiety and stress. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I don't know, Mr. Khan. Why didn't you become a doctor instead of a lawyer? Like, why is the sky blue? I don't know. Things just are. Sometimes you don't think of those things. I didn't have that thought. So why would I? Yeah, it's really frustrating when it's like, well, why didn't you think of this? Well, that's fine. Your Monday morning quarterbacking some situation that was under extreme duress, and you can't do that. You can't compare, rational thoughts afterwards when you're in the throes of this like complete um fearful breakdown. I don't know what you want to call it. They were in like almost like a psychotic, I don't want to say psychotic, but almost like a psychotic episode where like that's all they were focused on was that their parents were going to kill them. I'm not saying they were psychotic, but it's almost like that. Like it was like they were hyper focused on that because of the stress and everything, the circumstances of the situation. It was the one thing they were like focused on hyper vigilantly. So any little difference in their environment, it set them off. It made them anxious and nervous. So they were looking at everything. Anyways, next question. Uh, do, 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 do. Why didn't you have that conversation, Mr. Menendez, if you felt that you might be killed if you went on that trip? Because the whole point of me going home an hour late was so that I would be able to have an excuse to be home only an hour late. If they were still home and I then left and came back 3, 4 hours later, I would have no excuse because we would then be essentially, we would have we would have run away from my parents' eyes. If we came home an hour late, they were still there. The fishing trip might still be on. We were going to have to go. It wasn't an option at that point. So then you decided after being 1 hour late, it was not your intention to avoid your parents. And it was not your intention to avoid your parents anymore. You were going to go home. And if they were there, you were going to go on the trip. Is that correct? Right. And if you were killed, you were killed. Is that correct? No. Why not? I was hoping not to be killed. But you realized that by going on the fishing trip, you might be killed. Is that right? Right. The court says, all right, let's take our recess. So they have their morning recess and they come back. The court says, all right, we have everyone present. We'll resume with cross examination. The jury's in the jury box. We'll continue with cross examination. Mr. Conn says, thank you. When you got home from driving around with your brother on Saturday, you pulled into the driveway. And was it at that time that you saw your mother? I saw my mother just before I pulled into the driveway. What was she doing when you saw her? She was exiting the house. Did you see your father at that point in time? No. Did you see her before you pulled into that driveway? Yes. She was exiting before you pulled into the driveway? Yes. And the gate was open? Yes. How do you open the gate? Do you have a remote to open the gate? There's a remote that opens the gate. Did you have a remote in your car in the Escort? I'm sure I did. Is that how you got in that day, or was the gate already open? The gate was already open. What did you do after you pulled into the carport area there? I pulled in the driveway, and I remember my mom saying something along the lines of, now that you're here, let's go." She was in a hurry, and I remember going back to the hatchback, and I believe I covered the gun or did something with it, closed the hatchback, and went to the car. Now, you had found out that the ammunition that you had purchased in San Diego was essentially useless. Is that what you were told? That it wasn't the right ammo for what I needed. Well, in your testimony, did you refer to the ammo as being essentially useless? That's what I got out of it, yes. And you had your shotgun with you in the car as you were driving back from that gun store to your home on Elm Street, is that correct? Yes. And you had the box containing 10 rounds of buckshot with you as you were driving from the gun store back to your home on Elm Street, is that correct? Yes. Was your brother, Lyle Menendez, driving the car? Yes. Okay, so did you use that opportunity to load up your guns just in case you needed it when you got home? No. Why not? I don't know. Mr. Menendez, were you in fear for your safety on Saturday, the day before you shot your parents to death? Yes. Did it occur to you that if you were going to use that gun, it would be better not to have the ammo inside that gun that was essentially useless? After I bought the ammo, just wrapped up in worrying about the fishing trip, and I didn't think to load it, or I didn't. The next thought I have about the actual ammo in the gun is being in my bedroom on Saturday night when my dad was banging on the door saying, Jesus, I didn't load the gun. So it was on Saturday night that you said to yourself you didn't load the gun, is that correct? With the new ammunition. And it must have been your intention Saturday night to load up that gun as soon as you possibly could. Is that correct? Objection. Argumentative, says Mr. Levin. Sustained. Would you say, was it your intention at that time that when your father was banging on the door and you were sitting in your bedroom with a gun and ammunition, that was essentially useless to load up the gun at the very first opportunity that you had? On Saturday night? Yes. I don't remember thinking that. I just remember thinking, what do I do if he breaks down the door? I'm going to try to shoot. So as you were concerned about your father breaking down the door, you did not resolve in your own mind to load up that gun with the buckshot the first opportunity you got? My dad was banging on the door. I was freaking out. I was fine. Okay. Sorry. I thought anyways, I swear he did turn the mic off, right? I don't know. I'm imagine I mean, weird things happen all the time to me that I can't explain. Okay. Let's continue on. Sorry for that little uh intermission. My dad was banging on the door. I was freaking out. I was sitting there shaking, holding this gun, not knowing if I was going to be able to fire it. I wasn't thinking about these things. It just didn't occur to me when I was afraid. So you weren't thinking about that, having a gun with ammo that you could defend yourself? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Are you saying that as your father was banging down the door, you weren't thinking about having a gun with ammo that you could use to defend yourself? Objection, argumentative, overruled. The gun was in my lap. All I was thinking was if he breaks down that door, am I going to be able to fire? If I fire it, is it going to stop him? If it stops him, is my mom going to come right away with the rifles? These are the things that are racing through my mind, and my heartbeat is way up, and I'm just sitting there. I'm not thinking about the future. You told us that one of the things you were thinking about at the moment in time was that you had forgotten to load the correct ammunition inside the gun. Is that correct? It occurred to me as dad was started banging on the door and I'm sitting there. I only have 2 shells. I didn't load the other shells. Why didn't I do that? It was stupid. It was a stupid thing, and these thoughts are just bouncing in my brain. So while that thought was bouncing in your brain, did it also bounce in your brain that the first thing you should do Monday morning is load the gun? No. Why not? I can't tell you why that thought didn't occur to me. It just didn't. Is that because you were never in danger any time that week, Mr. Menendez? Certainly not. So it didn't occur to you as you were going from the gun store back to Elm Street Saturday to load your gun. Is that correct? I know that I didn't do it. Okay. Do you recall any conversation between yourself and your brother Lyle Menendez in which your brother Lyle told you now would be a good opportunity to load your gun? You have your gun, you have the ammo, you're not driving, go ahead and load? No. These are stupid. They're all like what ifs afterwards, like I said. These are all thoughts that a rational person can sit there and dissect the case and say, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Well, why? There were all these other options. When you're in the moment of that fear, fear of losing your own life by your own parents, unless you've ever felt that, you don't know what you can do in that situation or how you might react in that situation, and you're not going to think rationally. Rational thought when you're in that fight or flight moment is not always easy to come by. Did you have any plan in your mind as you were going to load your gun? Did you have any plan in mind as to when you were going to load your gun? I don't remember. Do you feel that you were just about more, do you think that you were thinking about more important things? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Was it because you had no intention of using your gun until Sunday evening, Mr. Menendez? No. So you got home, and I take it that when you pulled up in the driveway, your gun was still inside the tennis bag. Is that correct? I don't remember. I remember in the driveway doing something with the gun. I don't remember what it was. Maybe I just covered the shells. Maybe I covered the gun. I don't know. Okay, let me rephrase the question. When you pulled up in the driveway after coming from the gun store on Saturday, your gun was still in the tennis bag, wasn't it? I don't know. Well, Mr. Menendez, when you carried your gun down from your room to take it with you that day, you had it in the tennis bag, didn't you? Yes. And it was in the tennis bag when you put it back in your escort, in the back of your escort. Is that correct? Yes. Now, you had no reason to take it out of the bag that day, did you? I don't know what you mean by that. Well, you didn't take it out to load it, did you? No. And you didn't take you didn't take it into that gun store when you went in to purchase some ammunition, is that correct? Right. And you didn't go to the range that day, is that right? Right. And you didn't just carry it around in the street outside of the tennis bag, is that correct? No, I didn't do that. When you went to the gun store, your gun was still inside the tennis bag inside your car, is that correct? I guess so. I don't have a visual image of doing anything with the gun at that point. Can you think of any reason why your gun would have been out of the tennis bag while you were in the store? I can think of a bunch of reasons, but I don't know that those happened. I don't remember where the gun was. I simply don't. If it was in the bag, it was in the bag. I don't remember. Do you remember ever taking your gun out of the bag during any time that day, Saturday? That day, no. Okay. So it was by the time you pulled into the driveway after driving around with your brother, it was your belief that the gun was still inside the tennis bag. Is that correct? I don't remember what my belief was as to where the gun was. It was so many years ago. I'm sure all kinds of beliefs and things occurred to me and didn't occur to me. I don't know where the gun was, whether it was inside the bag or not. Mr. Menendez, did you cover your bag up while you were in that driveway? I don't remember if it was my bag that I covered up. Did you go to your car to cover something up? It was in my car. I opened the hatchback to cover something. Why did you want to cover something up at that point in time? Because I thought that something was exposed. What did you think was exposed at that time? I don't remember what I thought was exposed. Well, it was the gun. My memory is that I thought it was the gun. You previously testified that you went to your car to cover up your gun with clothing. Is that correct? I don't remember if I testified to that. I'm sure I did. That's what I think. Okay, volume 99, page 16584, line 6 through 15. Just a moment. Says Mr. Levin. Mr. Conn says, make that 6 through 19. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. It's not impeaching. The court says, all right, why don't you hand it up here? There's a pause in the proceedings. The court says, objection overruled. Mr. Conn says, Mr. Menendez, do you recall testifying to the following responses in response to the following questions in the first trial? That's confusing. Question. Now, when you saw your parents in the driveway at about 4 in the afternoon, did you immediately get into the car and then just drive off to the shark fishing trip? Answer. Yeah, we went right from the car. And I believe if I'm remembering correctly, I wanted to cover the gun up real quickly. So I went back to the hatchback because clearly I didn't want them to see it. And then we went directly to my dad's big Mercedes and left. Question. So you could see the shotguns in the back of your car? Answer. If you opened up the carport, yes, the car hatchback. Do you recall? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, I would ask the next question and answer be read also. Court says, okay. Mr. Conn says, I'll read that. Question. Was the box still in the car? Answer. I believe so. Do you recall giving those answers? I don't specifically recall it, but I'm sure I believe that is my testimony. Yes, that's what happened. So in the first trial, you said that you wanted to cover up the gun. Is that correct? I believe you just read that I wanted to cover up the gun and box up. Well, you told us that in this trial, when you traveled around with that gun, the gun was inside of a bag. Is that correct? I don't think that that's what I said. You don't think you testified in this trial that you were driving around on Saturday, the gun inside of your tennis bag? I remember saying that I don't remember if it was inside the tennis bag. It may well have been. That's what I remember saying. And you don't recall taking the gun out of the bag for any reason that day, do you? Sure. So there was no need to cover up the gun on that Saturday, as you testified in the first trial, was there? I can't tell you today whether I covered up the gun, whether I covered up the boxes to the gun, whether I covered up the boxes of shells, or what I covered up. All I remember is going to the hatchback to cover them up. You can't tell us today, but in the first trial, you said you covered up the gun. Is that correct? The gun and the box. Now, how many cars did you go in to get to the marina? One. Why? I don't know. Did you volunteer to go in the same car with your father? It wasn't a matter of volunteering. I was told to get into the car, and that's what I did. And who drove? My father. Really quick pause. I just want to say Mr. Conn thinks that like, yes, they're adults. Okay, so Erik is technically 18, Lyle is 21 at this time. Okay, they're adults. I get that. They can make choices outside of their home with the parents. However, Erik, they're still their parents. They still have years of abuse and being told what to do and having Jose, force his will and manipulate them into doing what he wants all the time. So it's not like they have the option to just say, "No, Dad, I'm not going to get in the car." It would be, let me take that back. They have the option to do it, but they know that if they do that, they're probably going to get smacked, hit, berated, yelled at, whatever the case may be. Something's going to happen bad to them if they do that. So they choose not to do that because the only other choice is to just basically go with it and just try not to rock the boat, try not to piss off the parents again. And that's not a way to live. That's a very terrible way to live. I've lived it. I had to walk on eggshells with my ex-husband, and it was it feels like a lifetime ago, but it was terrible. I'll just say that. It's not fun having every little thing that you do or say scrutinized and complained about, yelled at, nothing's ever good enough. So eventually, you learn to pick your battles. You learn not to fight certain battles because it's not worth your energy anymore. You don't have the energy to fight, to advocate for yourself anymore. So when your very demanding father, even if you're an adult, tells you, get in the car, you're going to get in the car. This attorney is acting like that isn't a factor in everything. Like they could just be like, "No, Dad, we're not going to do that. See you around. We're just leaving." And like that's not going to cause friction and problems. This attorney doesn't know abuse, and it shows. It wasn't a matter of volunteering. I was told to get in the car, and that's what I did. And who drove? My father. Now, had you spoken to your father since Thursday night when he came lunging at you and told you that he told you to never tell anyone about the molestation? I don't believe I had seen my father since that night. So you had no conversation with your father since the moment that you pushed him away from you and ran out of your bedroom. Is that correct? That's correct. So how did this trip to the marina go? It was very eerie. It was a very eerie trip. I just remember the silence. There was no conversation. No one spoke to anyone? I remember no conversation. Did you decide it might be better to strike up a conversation and ease the tension a little bit? I wasn't the type of person that would do that. Did you decide at that point it might be better to tell your father you were sorry? For what? For telling? No. Did you decide at that point that it might be better to tell your father that you were not going to tell anyone else? I didn't. And you knew your mother knew at that point. Is that correct? She did. And did you decide at that point to get a conversation going to try to resolve the situation a little better? I would have loved for a conversation to have been started. I was waiting for them to initiate one. Anything. Nothing happened. It was silence on the way to the marina. Did you ask your father if he still had bad feelings towards you? Who does that? No. Did you ask your father if he was going to kill you? Again, who does that? No. And your brother Lyle Menendez struck up no conversation? That's correct. Was it your desire to ease the tension a little bit? I don't know how to ease the tension. I could not strike up a conversation with my father or even with my mother like that under that tense pressure. I just was not it was not in my nature. I'm not that type of person to do that. He's very timid because his father trained him to be that way. Now that weekend, you wanted to avoid suspicion, is that correct? What did you mean? Didn't you want to behave in a way so that your father would not be suspicious that you and Lyle were up to something? I definitely wanted him to feel comfortable that we were not planning running away or going to the police. You wanted to put him at ease, is that right? I don't know that I wanted to put him at ease versus make sure that I didn't do anything that specifically made him uneasy. And so, what you did to ensure that he would not be uneasy was you stayed totally out of his sight all day Friday and all day Saturday up until the time of the boat trip. Objection, argumentative, sustained to the form of the question. Did you consider, if you wanted to put your father at ease, whether it would be a good idea to spend so much time away from the house with your brother or Friday and Saturday? I was back by Friday night, sometime between 7, 8, 8:30, and I felt that that was good. That would put him at ease. I wasn't out. I hadn't run away, and on Saturday morning, I didn't care. I was trying to avoid going on the fishing trip. But you didn't see him on Friday, did you? I did not see him on Friday. And so you had no knowledge of your father seeing you on Friday, is that correct? No. So what did you decide to do, if anything, to relieve your father of any concerns that you and Lyle might be up to something? It wasn't a matter of relieving my father. I don't think much could have been done to relieve my father. It was a matter of not doing anything to make him feel as though we were running away or we were going to the police. Well, did you think that spending the day away from home on Friday and spending the day away from home on Saturday was consistent with that goal? I was back by Friday night. I thought that was consistent. I was an hour late to the fishing trip, which was as much as I could be. And so there was nothing that I could do about it. I didn't leave at 6 in the morning or on Saturday. I didn't Probably it would have been better to stay at home, but I just wanted to miss the fishing trip. Did you tell your brother Lyle at any time that weekend, why don't we just tell our father we're not going to go to the police and perhaps that will lighten up the tension a little bit? No. So after driving in silence to the marina, you got to the boat? Yes. And did you have any concerns when you got on the boat about the people who were present or the size of the boat or anything of that nature? I remember specifically my mother saying that the boat was smaller than they had expected, and I remember her saying that there were more people than she thought will be on the boat. Why were there more than just the boat captain and the on the boat? And she was agitated at that, which I liked. Did that cause you some concern? Just the opposite. It made me feel more comfortable that there were unexpected things that she hadn't expected. I didn't know why she cared whether or not there was one person on the boat versus three. That concerned me a little bit. The fact that the three people were staying on the boat made me feel better. So you felt at that point that you were not going to be killed? No. Why not? In the frame of mind I was in, I just never thought that. It made me a lot more at ease that there were two extra people on the boat, one of them being a woman that she had not expected to be there. I liked that, but it certainly didn't put to rest all of my fears. Are you saying, Mr. Menendez, that you still felt that your mother and father were going to kill you on that boat in the presence of three strangers? That's not what I'm saying. Then why were you concerned for your safety? Because as anxious as I was from Thursday and Friday, there was no way that in the presence of my parents I was going to feel at ease ever. I couldn't physically be at ease around them. That's fear. You can't fake that or make that up. And someone some entitled little brat who only killed his parents for an inheritance wouldn't even know that, or to know to incorporate all the things that he's incorporating that someone who was abused would say or think or feel. And that is because you accepted the possibility that your mother and father were going to kill you in the presence of three strangers. Is that what you're saying? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Are you saying that you accepted the possibility that your mother and father were going to kill you in the presence of three strangers? That's not what I'm saying. The only reason why you were afraid was because you believed your parents were going to kill you. Is that correct? Right. And you believed your parents might kill you on the boat. Is that correct? Right. Is the presence in the presence of three strangers. Is that correct? When I found out that there were two strangers more than the one person that she expected, it put me more at ease. It didn't take away all of my concerns and say, "Oh, wow, this is going to be nice, fun trip. I'm going to enjoy this." It made me feel more at ease, like most probably nothing was going to happen now, but it certainly didn't put my fears to rest. So then, you still had some concern that your parents were going to kill you in the presence of three strangers. Isn't that true, Mr. Menendez? Yes, I guess. Okay, now did that seem reasonable to you? Objection, argumentative. You have to rephrase the question as to what seemed reasonable, says that to me. Sorry. Let me change the mic a little bit so he can't keep muting me. Um, the court says you have to rephrase the question as to what seemed reasonable. Mr. Conn says, did the notion of your father and mother killing you in the presence of the three strangers sound reasonable to you? Nothing was reasonable about that weekend. The idea that this was happening in my life and what was occurring was actually occurring was unbelievable. I mean, nothing like this had ever happened to me before. I didn't know what was going to happen next, and I didn't believe that they were going to do anything at that point on the fishing trip, but I just being around my father, being around my mother at that time made me queasy. It made me very uncomfortable and afraid. What I'm asking is, did you feel in your own mind that it was a reasonable belief that your mother and father might kill you in the presence of three strangers? Objection, it's argumentative. Court says you're asking, did he feel that he was reasonable in believing this? Yes. Overruled. I don't know whether or not I was reasonable. I wasn't thinking in terms of, am I thinking reasonably? All I thought was, I'm still afraid. Probably nothing's going to happen. I'm still afraid. I don't know if it was reasonable or not. It's just what I thought. So, did you get a reality check? Did you turn to your brother Lyle and say to him, Lyle, do you feel that your father and mother are going to kill us in the presence of three strangers? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Did you ask your brother if he had any concerns about your parents killing you in the presence of three strangers? As soon as my mother said that while we were in front of my parents and all the rest of the people, no. At any time during that trip, did you say to your brother, do you think our parents are going to kill us in the presence of three strangers? I believe we probably did. I'm sure I said to him, or he said to me, this is good, this is good, this looks good. I'm sure we were up in the front of the boat 90% of the trip we talked. I'm sure that we said that. And how did your brother respond to you? I don't remember his words. It's just impossible to remember them. No doubt he agreed with me. It's how I felt. I'm not asking you for exact words. I'm just trying to ask you what was the conversation between yourself and your brother concerning the realistic likelihood that your parents were going to try to kill you in the presence of three strangers. Objection, it's argumentative as phrased. Overruled. I don't remember a conversation about the realistic likelihood. I'm sure my brother and I, in fact, I know my brother and I were exchanging glances and looks throughout the whole beginning as we were getting onto the boat and what was happening. I was on the edge of my feet, so to speak, in an expression. I was constantly waiting to see what was going to happen. I'm sure I looked at him. He looked at me, and at one point, one of us said, "Let's go up to the front of the boat." And I'm sure we said, "What do you think? There's two extra people. What do you think about what mom said?" "Oh, this is good." I'm sure all of that happened. I just can't remember it now. You're saying, at least as you sit here today, you do not remember any conversation between yourself and your brother concerning whether or not there was a realistic likelihood that your parents were going to kill you in the presence of three strangers. Is that correct? Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Are you saying that, to the best of your recollection, there was no conversation between yourself and your brother concerning the likelihood of your parents killing you in the presence of three strangers? I think I'm trying to convey just the opposite of what you're saying. That you recall the conversation? No, that in all probability, I believe there was a conversation. I would be surprised if there wasn't. I just can't specifically recall it. So you recall no specific discussions to that effect. Objection asked as you sit there. Asked and answered, says Levin. The court says that's what he said. Overruled. Mr. Conn says, so where did you go when you got on the boat? I know before we left the marina, before we started, or as we were just starting out in the marina, we went up to the front of the boat. How long did you remain in the front of the boat? For a very long time, almost all of the trip. Why? Because it just felt safer up there. Now, when you say the front of the boat, directing your attention to Exhibit 348, you're saying, well, let me direct your attention first to 347, which depicts Detective Zoller in the front of the boat. Were you where Detective Zoller is during most of the trip, or were you up against this glass area here at the front of the boat? Detective Zoller's standing on the side of the boat. I remember as we were heading out of the marina that it was choppy, that the boat was going up and down, that the waves were crashing all over. I remember that I was freezing, and I remember I was sitting where there's in front of the hood with my back pretty much against the window because it was wet and it was slippery. And I remember feeling at times that as the boat was rocking, I would slide towards one side. Those are the things that I was doing as I was sitting on the boat. What I'm asking you is, where did you spend most of your time? Where Detective Zoller was or some other place on the boat? In that area. Objection, Your Honor. I don't believe Detective Zoller's on the boat. The court says, well, it's unclear from that photograph whether he's on the boat or on the dock. Rephrase the question. Can you tell us where on the boat you spent most of the trip specifically? Right there, sitting in front. Right where? Would you be more specific? Let me give you the pointer. You can remain where you are. Right here. If I stood up here, it was so wet and slippery, you would slip and fall right off the boat because it was rocking on this. At the time, even at the time it was fishing, it was rocking. I remember heading out right here, and I stayed right here almost all of the trip. All right, thank you. And where do you remember your father being most of the trip? I remember him being in the back, and I could hear blips of words and conversation spoken, depending on how quiet or how choppy or what was happening. Where do you remember your mother being during most of the trip? I remember her being in the back with Dad, and then I remember at some point her getting seasick and going underneath. So you remained in the front of the boat because you felt more safe there? Yes. Why did you feel that it was more safe in the front of the boat over here than it would be 15 feet over there? Well, in fact, the fact that it was 15 feet didn't have anything to do with it. It was the furthest way away from where my father was, and that's where I felt most safe. Did you feel that that reduced the likelihood of your father going to kill you? The likelihood that my father was going to kill me had greatly diminished. When we were fishing for sharks, I remember the scene very clearly, and it was a very uncomfortable thing being in front of the boat. As strange as it sounds, there was little chance that I was going to accidentally fall overboard when the sharks were all around eating on the blood. You stayed in the front of the boat because you felt that was the best place to avoid falling overboard? I didn't I didn't mean to portray that. I meant during that portion of the trip, I just felt safer up there. And that was one of the things that was in my mind. I went up to the front of the boat at the very beginning of the trip. It just was the furthest away possible that I could be from my father. My mother was in the back as well. It just felt made me more easy. Did you feel it would be more difficult for your father to kill you if you remained in the front of the boat? In a sense. In what sense? In the sense that it would make it more difficult. How would it make it more difficult for your father to kill you if you were in the front of the boat? Less things accidentally could occur to me if I was far away from him and he wasn't around me. But you didn't remain up there the whole time, did you? I remained up there as much as I basically could. There were times when your father called you back and you went to the back of the boat, is that correct? I remember one specific time after the shark was reeled in when he called, either both of us back or one of us back, and we went back, and I remember looking at the shark. But there were times when you went to the back even when you weren't called to go to the back. Is that correct? I remember a specific time when I was feeling ill, a little bit seasick. I had to use the restroom and went to the back of the boat and below. There were times when you were in the back of the boat talking to one of another to other people on the boat. Is that correct? What do you mean by that? Well, did you ever speak to any of the 3 people who were on the boat besides your parents and your brother? I'm sure that I did. And you've heard testimony in this courtroom about the fact that you chatted a little bit with one or more of the persons. Is that correct? I don't remember that. Did you speak to the captain? I know that he was there with my father talking about the fact that the shark was only 4 feet and my father wanted a bigger shark. And there was just the general conversation. I was standing there. I don't specifically remember saying anything. I remember having to touch the shark at one point. Do you remember? Excuse me. As the dog tries to get it in a comfortable spot. Do you remember having a conversation with the captain about the fact that that boat had been used in some motion pictures? Right. You're right. And you talked to the captain about the fact that it was used in the movie Tequila Sunrise. Is that correct? Yeah, that I think it was asked why it was called motion picture. I don't know what that says. Motion picture boat. And then that was talked about. I don't remember if I asked about it. I may have, but I talked about that. When you were in the back of the boat talking to the captain about Tequila Sunrise, it wasn't because your father was demanding your presence in the back of the boat at that moment, was it? I don't know. Do you recall that you found it kind of interesting that it had been used in the movie Tequila Sunrise, and at one point you called your brother and said, "Come to the back of the boat and listen to this about Tequila Sunrise"? I don't remember calling my brother to the back of the boat to find out about Tequila Sunrise or that I informed him about the Tequila Sunrise. No, I may have. He may have been standing 5 feet away and I said that to him, but I don't recall that. And your brother came to the back of the boat from time to time, didn't he? I remember my brother coming to the back of the boat once, maybe twice, but about 5.5 of the 6 hours he remained in the front of the boat. Is that because you and your brother were up in the front of the boat talking about whether or not you were going to kill your parents Sunday night? That makes no sense to me. It wasn't because you and your brother were conspiring to kill your parents that next night? No. Were you talking about what you were going to do with these shotguns that you had purchased on Friday? No. Staying up in front of the boat was cold and it was wet and it was uncomfortable and I didn't want to be back up there, but I just didn't want to be in the back and I don't remember discussing the guns. It was very uncomfortable in the front of the boat, wasn't it? Yes, it was. And you stayed up there for a reason, is that correct? Yes, I did. And that is because you felt it would be so much more dangerous in the back of the boat. I don't know if I'd use those words, but it made me feel more comfortable sitting in the front of the boat. I didn't like the fact that I was on the boat in the first place, fishing for sharks in the middle of the night, miles away from anywhere. He's got a good point there. I mean, and a crazy dad. Did you say to your brother while you were sitting in the front of the boat, Lyle is very wet and cold and uncomfortable up here? Do you think we can go to the back of the boat and sit down in the cabin, or do you think that our father would kill us if we would do that? What kind of question is that? I remember at one point saying that I had to go to the bathroom and I waited as long as I could, and I was saying I have to go back and go to the bathroom. I remember that there were words about how cold it was, of course, and things of that sort. Did you discuss whether it was really necessary to bear that discomfort or whether you could go back and sit in a place that's warmer? Probably, we discussed it. And how did you resolve that issue? We stayed in front of the boat. And is that because you agreed that you were more likely to be killed if you went to the back? I don't know if we would have put it in that way, but that's how we felt. Was that something that you discussed, that you would be more likely to be killed if you went to the back of the boat? We decided that it would be safer to stay in the front of the boat, so in converse, we were meaning that. Did you give each other reasons why it should be safer to stay in the front of the boat? I don't remember. Did you talk about the difficulty of your father traversing that 10 feet or so to get to the front of the boat? I don't think I needed to discuss it. It was a dangerous walk up there. It was easy to slip off the boat. And you and your brother did it several times going back and forth, didn't you? Yes. And your father was only 45 years old. Is that correct? He was. And he had good eyesight. Yes. And he was in good health. Not really. What was wrong with him? He'd had a heart attack about 6 months before. Did you think that your father would have difficulty getting to the front of the boat? No. Is that one of the reasons why? Strike that. What did you talk about with your brother the whole time that you were in front of the boat? I don't know what we talked about. In general, we were talking about the situation, what was happening, the family, and some of the things that had occurred to us over our life. Specifically, what we talked about at that point, I don't know. Now, as you were sitting in the front of the boat, were you concerned about whether your behavior might appear to be suspicious to your father? I don't think I really cared. Didn't you testify previously that you were concerned about not doing anything that might appear to be suspicious to your father? Yes, but he didn't really say suspicious. He said like to anger him, like to upset him, to set him off. Didn't he? I don't think he said suspicious. Objection, says Mr. Levin. Mr. Levin says withdrawn. The witness says, yes, but on the boat, I was more concerned about my safety. It just outweighed my concern not to be suspicious. His uncomfortable feeling that you feel it in your body, the tense anxiousness, being near someone who has abused you, you're ready to like stop it and you don't want to see that person anymore and you're afraid to see that person, your whole body reacts. Your whole body tenses up, gives you nerves, anxiety, all that stuff. So I don't know what Eric's going through, but I can tell you from my own personal experience that being in settings where I had to go to court with my ex, I'd be in knots that day, just completely tense, nervous. I did not want to see him, run into him. I was terrified he was going to follow me. It was a bad situation. Very bad situation, which I'm sure has caused all my autoimmune stuff to like skyrocket because that's about the time that it did. So it's a very stressful thing to be around the person that abuses you, and especially when you're done with it and you're like, I'm not having this anymore. So when he talks about wanting to be physically the furthest away from Jose, I totally understand that. Mr. Conn says, so did you feel that it might look suspicious to your father if you remained in the front of the boat the whole time with your brother talking rather than going back and mingling with your parents in the fishing? What was the question? Do I think it did? Did you feel that it would? Did you believe that it might look suspicious to your parents if you remained in the front of the boat the whole time rather than going to the back of the boat and mingling with your parents? I'm not sure. There wasn't any conversation on the way over to the marina. Clearly, there was a lot of agitation inside the family at that point. I don't remember those thoughts of it being suspicious actually being there. There might have been. And how long did that trip last? That fishing trip? Roughly 6 hours. And when you were driving home from the fishing trip, was there conversation in the car? I don't remember any conversation in the car. Was it quiet, just like on the way over to the fishing trip, as far as you can recall? My parents didn't speak with us. Do you recall you or your brother trying to speak to your parents? No. Do you recall a conversation between you and your brother in the presence of your parents? At what point? In the car on the way home? No, I don't. So, still, no one was making an effort to break the ice or to relieve the tension a little bit. That's exactly right. And as soon as you got home, the first thing that you told your parents was that you and your brother were going to go out and have a talk. Is that correct? I don't think I used those words. I believe I said to my mother, I'm going out. I don't specifically remember saying it. I remember opening up the study door. That was about midnight that you and your brother were going out? Right. Was that usual behavior on your part for you and your brother to just go off somewhere at midnight? I don't remember what I said to my mother, but it was the summer, and ordinarily, had nothing been happening in the family, I could go out anytime I pleased. And so, did you give your parents any indication as to where you and your brother were going? I don't know whether I said to my mother, I'm going out for a few minutes, I'll be back, or what, but I believe I did say something to her. Why did you believe that you said something to her? Because I wouldn't have left without saying anything to her. Why? Because it was midnight and I wanted them to feel at ease, and I just don't believe I could have left without saying something to her. Why did you want them to feel at ease at that point? Are we going about this again? He's asking still the same questions. I didn't know if they might wonder why we're leaving at midnight or what. I believe I mentioned something to my mother. And what was your concern about them wondering where you were going at midnight? My concern was anything that made them feel uneasy when I didn't want to make them feel uneasy. Anything that made them feel or wonder, are Lyle and I up to something strange? Are we going to go away? Are we going to talk to someone? Anytime I didn't have to do that, I tried to do just the opposite. Well, then, why, when you were going home in the car that day, were you sitting there with your brother in total silence and not saying a word to them rather than saying something like, hey, that was a great trip? Maybe I'm not conveying the uneasiness that was going on at the time. I'm in the car, I'm with my parents. There's been this extreme blow up on Thursday. Things have come out that I didn't fathom before. This is now Saturday, remember. I have not spoken to my father since Thursday night, at least not a substance a conversation, and I'm not going to bring up to my parents a single thing. I'm not the type of person that I was able to do that. I wasn't. I was trained to do just the opposite in my life, and the pressure and the intensity of the drive home was of the kind that I just could not do and I wouldn't. Didn't the fact that it was so uneasy and so uncomfortable in the car give you all the more reason to say something that would lighten the mood a little bit? Objection, argumentative, sustained, finally. Did you feel that in light of the fact it was so uneasy and so uncomfortable in that car that if you said something such as enjoyed the trip, it might help to lighten the atmosphere a little bit? I can only convey to you the relationship that I had with my mother, that my brother had with my mother, that we had with our father, and it wasn't of the sort to enter into conversations under extreme pressure under any circumstances. Under this kind of pressure and this kind of intensity, it was just, I cannot even fathom it. I couldn't do it. It'd be like speaking out of turn when you know that you're not supposed to right now. They were waiting for the parents to break the ice somehow. Now, after spending the whole day, most of the day, sitting in the front of the boat talking to your brother Lyle, why was it that when you got home at about midnight, the one thing that you wanted to do was to go with your brother and talk a little bit more? Objection, argumentative, it calls for a conclusion, and it's compound, and it misstates the testimony. The court says it's argumentative. Mr. Conn says, can you tell us why it was that you wanted to go out with your brother after you got home on Saturday night? Because nothing had happened on the fishing trip, I wanted to talk to him about that. I felt better about that. I didn't know why my mother was so concerned that there were two extra people on the boat or the fact that it was smaller. I brushed it off as something that could be anything. But I didn't understand why she was concerned about two extra people. Yet I felt much better and very relieved that nothing had happened on the fishing trip. So, but still, that no one was saying anything inside the car. I didn't know what we were going to do the next day. I wanted to talk about it with my brother. You were concerned about your mother's concern about two extra people on the boat? Yes. Isn't that something that you and your brother had about 5 or 6 hours to talk about while you were on that boat? Yes. And now you're telling us that after you get home, after sitting next to your brother in the front of the boat for 5 or 6 hours, one of the reasons why you wanted to go out was to talk to your brother some more about your mother's concerns about the two extra people on the boat. What I'm trying to convey to you is that there was so many things that were uncertain and we didn't know what was going on at the time that all of these things that were just mushed together. And there wasn't a specific point that I wanted to talk to Lyle about. I wanted to talk to Lyle about just in general everything that had happened when we were with our parents on the trip and what it meant and what we were going to do about it. Mr. Menendez, if you were concerned enough to tell your mother that you were going out because you didn't want to rouse any suspicion, did you feel that the very fact that you're going out with your brother that late at night without having any conversations with your parents all day might tend to cause them even more concern about your behavior? Objection, argumentative. The court says rephrase the question. Did you feel that going out with your brother at midnight, having not spoken to your parents all day, might rouse some suspicion in them? Not if I told them that I was going to go out. So you felt that as long as you told your mother you were going to go out, then she would have absolutely no concern or suspicion about why you and your brother were going out. Is that correct? I didn't know what was in my mom's mind. I'm asking you what was in your mind. If I mentioned that I was going out to her and I'm certain that I did, then that would just take away that unease. I meant it wouldn't. Yes. So you believed that the fact that you were going out late at night would not cause your mother any concern. Objection asked and answered. Overruled. Had I not said anything to her, it might have, but I did. How long did you stay out with your brother? Less than an hour. And you went to the stadium at UCLA, the track field. Did you talk about killing your parents the next day? No. And you came back to your home, and what did you do when you arrived? I tried I tried the study door, which I'd opened before I left. It was now locked, so I rang the doorbell. Okay, now you felt that your parents were perhaps on the edge of killing you at any moment, didn't you? Well, because of my discussion at UCLA, I wasn't certain, didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and that's what caused a lot of things. Well, what did you discuss at UCLA that you hadn't discussed on the boat? What the overall effect of the boat trip, what we were going to do the next day, why we were going to do it, what the silence in the car meant, and if that had anything to do with it. It was just everything. Not specifics. It was everything what we discussed. Now, you could have just gone over to the guest house and slept at the guest house with your brother, is that correct? I could have, and I wanted to. But you decided that the wiser thing to do would be to wake up your parents. That was the decision that was determined to be the wisest, I suppose. Was it? Did you feel that that was the wiser decision? Not really, no. Why'd you do it? Because in talking to Lyle, I felt was the best thing. I didn't feel that it was the wisest more emotionally. I didn't want to be in that house. So whether it was a good idea or not, I wasn't as concerned about as I just didn't want to be there. Now, you didn't have a key to the house? No. And you didn't have a key because your mother didn't want you to have a key? Yes. And since that was the rule, you didn't violate that rule, is that correct? I don't think it crossed my mind to get a key. It just was the rule of the house. And you never made a copy of a key whenever you had the key, a copy of the key in your own possession, did you? She did not want me to have a key on my keychain, so I didn't have a key on the keychain. Well, regardless of whether it's on your keychain or not, did you ever make a copy of the key so you can keep a copy of the key in your pocket whenever you need it? Even though my mother had asked me or basically told us that we were not supposed to do that? Yes. No. And because you didn't, felt you didn't have permission to do that? Right. Mr. Menendez, you didn't feel you had permission to carry shotguns inside the house and out, did you? It's a completely different situation, not even related, not even analogous. I can't imagine how you can put the two together. That is a beautiful answer from a defendant. They're not. They're not the same. You can't even compare the two. Why not? Violating my parents' order wasn't something I was going to do. If she did not want me to have a key, she told me she didn't want me to have a key. It was the rule from the house before. I just didn't do it. And you can't imagine yourself violating that rule, is that correct? Who I was at the time, I wouldn't have done it, and I didn't do it. You were the kind of person who would not carry a key into the house without your mother's permission, but you were the kind of person who would carry a loaded shotgun into the house to possibly shoot your mother. That should be objection. Under the conditions at the time, it's completely different. The answer is yes. The answer is yes to what? You are that type of person? I would not have violated my mother's order to not carry a key. I don't specifically remember it. I'm sure I complained I want to have a key. She said no, that was the final decision and so I didn't have a key. Me carrying a shotgun had only to do with the blow up on Thursday and what happened on Thursday and what was revealed. It was a very different situation. Mr. Menendez, can you explain to us how you could be the type of person who could carry a loaded gun into the house to possibly use against your mother, and yet at the same time not be that kind of person who would carry a key into the house without your mother's permission? I don't believe that. Objection, argumentative, sustained. So when you rang the doorbell, what happened? My mother came down from upstairs. How did she respond to your awakening her at the time of the night? She was, objection, Your Honor, it assumes facts, not an evidence. Sustained, rephrase the question. What happened when she came downstairs? She was upset at us. What did she say to you? She told us that we should have had a key. So that's like total gaslighting. Like, I tell you, you can't have a key, but then when you when you try to come in late at night and I lock the doors on you and you try to get in, I tell you you need a key. What? That makes no sense. Did you tell her this is your idea, Mom? I'd be willing to carry a key. Almost exactly what Lyle said to her in the foyer, and she said, that's no excuse. You should have a key. Shouldn't have woken her up or have had to have her get out of bed at that time of night. Did Lyle say, okay, I'll make a key tomorrow? No. There was just a big, she just started screaming. It was a big blow up over the key, and Lyle said, it's your idea. She said, that's no excuse. I said something. She told me to shut up. It was all my fault. If I would have kept my mouth shut, things would have worked out in this family. And it ended soon after that. And then it was short, and then she went back upstairs. And then you knew for sure that your parents were going to kill you. Is that correct? That made me frightened, yes. Sure, but not certain that your parents were going to kill you? Right. So tell us how you could be sure, but not certain that your parents were going to kill you. She was talking about us being a family in the past tense. That frightened me. I was already uneasy. It just heightened my concern. I thought that something very definitely might happen at that point when she was talking about after she said that, but I couldn't be certain. And because you couldn't be certain, you stayed home that night? I wanted to stay in the guest house. At that point, Lyle told me to sleep in my bedroom. If you had been certain that your parents were going to kill you, you would have left. Is that correct? Had I been certain my parents were going to kill me, I don't know that I would have what I would have done. You might have stayed anyways? Objection calls for speculation. Overruled. This judge is a joke. I don't know what I would have done. But since you weren't certain that your parents were going to kill you, you decided to stay. Is that correct? Right. And you stayed in your own room that night. Yes. Now, after your mother had this conversation with you, did she then go back up to the bedroom and leave you and Lyle alone downstairs? Essentially. And then you were able to talk a little bit more about with your brother about your mother after she left. I went back outside. I asked Lyle what he thought that meant. I told him I didn't want to sleep in the main house anymore. We decided to stay with our original idea of him staying or trying to talk to mom and dad the next day on Sunday. Now, while you were at the boat trip with your brother that day, did either of you say to each other, the one thing we have to remember to do when we go home is to take the useless ammo out of the shotguns and put in the buckshot? No. Why not? Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. Overruled. I don't remember. I don't remember the thought occurring to me. I don't think it did. I can't tell you why the thought didn't occur to me. It just didn't. It just didn't. It never occurred to you on all of those hours on the boat that you had useless ammunition in the weapon that you were going to use to defend your life. Is that correct? Maybe I should not have used the word useless. The man in the gun store told me this ammo is is not going to defend me for home protection. And so that's basically how I felt, how I characterized it. I don't know. I just didn't think about it after the fishing trip. I was concerned about what was happening on the fishing trip. And when I took the gun up to my room, I realized it then. And at that point, it was too late. Didn't you previously testify that the man in the gun store told you that the ammo was essentially useless? What I'm saying is that's what I got out of it. All right. I don't think he used the word useless. He told me that these shots were for killing birds and small animals like that. And that's why I just. So you knew the ammo was essentially useless in that. Is that correct? Right. That's pretty much how I felt. Yes. So when you went to UCLA to the track and fields and you were sitting there with your brother, let me ask you this. What car did you use to drive over to the track field? We always used my car. His car wasn't working well. So you still had the buckshot inside your car. Right. And you still had the shotgun inside your car. Is that correct? Right. And you still believed your parents were going to kill you. Is that correct? I wasn't sure. So while you were at the track field with your brother, did either you turn to your brother or did your brother turn to you and say, the one thing that we have to remember is to load up that gun before we go to bed tonight? No. Why not? I don't know. It would have been a great idea. I wish I would have thought of it. It's what I should have done. I should have done a lot of different things that I didn't do. I should have come up with a lot of different things that were going through my mind when I'm in that situation in those nights and I'm scared. You think what you think and you do what you feel is best at the time. 6 years later, I can analyze it and say, why didn't you do that? And why didn't you do that? But at the time, it was what I thought. I did what I thought I could do best. When you're in that kind of situation in which you feel like you might be killed, you do things to protect yourself. Is that correct? Objection vague. Overruled. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm saying, Mr. Menendez, that when you feel that you're in danger, you tend to think about things and do things that you could to protect yourself. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative, overruled. Philosophically? Says Eric. Yes. No, I'm talking about in a situation that you were in. Objection, it's what I did just a minute, says Mr. Levin. Vague with respect to what time he's referring to. Court says, okay, you're talking about that Saturday? Yes, Your Honor. And his thoughts at that time? Yes. Okay. When on Saturday? Sorry, I just had to pause for a second to put the blanket on the dog. So I don't remember where I left off. Mr. Khan says, I'm talking about all day long Saturday. Did you have thoughts about protecting yourself? Right. Did those thoughts about protecting yourself have anything to do with the fact that the gun that you were going to use to protect yourself had essentially useless ammo in it? Thoughts that, could you repeat it, please? Yes. Did any of your thoughts that day include a concern about the fact that the ammo that was in the gun that you going to use to protect yourself was essentially useless ammo? The whole day? At any time that day, did you think about that? I specifically remember it Saturday night when my dad was banging on my door. Okay, so up until Saturday night, it didn't occur to you, right? No. So when you finished talking to Lyle on Saturday night, right after your mother had gone upstairs, you then took your gun upstairs with you. Is that correct? Yes. Now, did you have to put it back inside a bag or was it already inside a bag? I don't remember. I just remember carrying it in a bag upstairs. Okay, so you took that bag with you upstairs, and did you bring the box of ammo with you upstairs too? No. Why not? I don't know why not. You didn't think about it? I don't know whether, I don't think I thought about it. I don't know why I didn't think about it. I guess I would have. I was thinking about so many things, feeling so many things that I just didn't do it. Okay. Did Lyle Menendez ask you for any ammo before you went up to your room? No. Now, after you went upstairs, your father began to bang on your door at some point. Is that correct? Yes. And then at that point, you said, I forgot to load my gun. Is that correct? When he first started banging on my door, the first thing I did was jump up, run to my gun, and get it. It was when I was holding it and thinking about what would happen, pictured him busting open the door. Yes, then it occurred to me. It occurred to you that you hadn't loaded the gun, that I hadn't replaced the shells that I had originally put in there with the new ones. Okay. Did you resolve to do something at that point in time? I wasn't thinking about the future. I was thinking about how I was going to handle the situation in front of me at that point. So you made no resolution. Oh my God, are we back to this? When he was banging on the door, no. At any time that night, did you make any resolution concerning what you were going to do with respect to the useless ammunition that was inside your gun? I'm sure that I did. And what resolution did you make that evening? I don't remember making the resolution, but after he left, I'm sure I was thinking, why didn't I replace the ammo? That was stupid. And I'm sure that I was going to the next day. And how are you sure, as you sit there today, how are you sure that you resolved in your mind that you were going to replace the ammo the next day? I'm only making the logical jump that I did because I was so concerned about it when he was banging on the door that I did. I don't specifically remember saying it to myself. So you're just saying you assumed that you did it. Is that correct? Yes. But just asking about what you remember. I'm just asking about what you remember. Do you recall making a resolution in your mind that night that you were going to load your gun the first thing Sunday morning? No. Okay. And when your father was banging on the door, what was he saying? Open the goddamn door. Now, did it strike you as odd that the last time you had spoken to your father, he was lunging at you, and then there was some time period all day Friday and all day Saturday when he made no violent gestures towards you, and now he was suddenly making another violent gesture towards you? The whole weekend was the strangest thing I had ever experienced. The whole weekend was odd. Thursday night was odd. It was just odd. So this struck you as odd that he was banging on my door? Yes. At that point, I wasn't thinking that this was odd. I was thinking, how am I going to deal with this situation? Sitting on my bed, wondering if I'm going to be able to shoot this gun. Are you saying the whole weekend struck you as odd except this incident? I'm saying during this incident, I wasn't thinking about whether the weekend was odd, only whether I was going to be able to fire the gun, not wanting to fire the gun, not knowing if I was going to freeze. You realize at that point that the ammo that you had at that point was essentially useless. Is that correct? No, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought that if he busted open the door, that I would fire the 2 rounds at him if I could, and that I didn't know if it would be able to stop him. So even if he was able to get the rounds out of the gun, fired out of the gun, would the round stop him? And even if it was able to, that my mother would be right there. And she's got her own handguns that she could easily go get. Was it your belief at that time that your father was going to come into the room and kill you? He was certainly coming into my room for something. It was more present in my mind, I think, sex, but it equated the same thing to me because I was going to be sitting there with a shotgun in my lap. So you knew that and at that point, objection, says Mr. Levin. So, Mr. Conn, at that point, it was going to be resolved. Somebody was going to die, whoa, says Erik. Um, okay, so we just go right over the objection, no response from the attorneys, and then Erik throws that out and says at that point it was going to be resolved. Somebody was going to die, either Erik or Jose, potentially. Because you knew when you used that gun somebody was going to die, is that correct? I knew that if I wasn't able to fire it, that I would be killed with it because I would be sitting there in front of my father with a shotgun across my lap. So there was no point in your mind that your father was either going to come in your room for one of two purposes, to outright kill you or sexually assault you. Is that correct? No. I don't even know if those two were the specific thoughts that I thought. I just saw him coming into my room and that terrified me. I'm not sure that I even was thinking specifically. Looking back, I can tell you what I was probably thinking, but I just remember the terror and the emotion, the swelling of it. And you also remember the thoughts of your mother being right behind him. Is that correct? I thought of the shots going off, my brother being in the guest house, my mother being in his bedroom with the two rifles, and what was I going to do at that point? Did you feel that your father was capable of breaking down the door? Yes. And you anticipated that perhaps at any moment your father would, in fact, break down that door, and you would be in the position of using essentially useless ammo against him. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative, overruled. Ammunition that wasn't sure would be able to stop him. Ammunition that I wasn't sure was able to stop him. Mr. Conn says, "So, did you call up Lyle on the phone to get some backup?" No, I did not. Why not? When I was on my bed, I couldn't move. I couldn't move. Afterwards, I didn't call him either, but when I was on my bed and he was at that door, I couldn't move. After your feet left, did you I'm sorry, after your father left, did you call up Lyle on the phone? No. Did you think that it might be a good idea to let your brother know that your father was possibly attempting to come into your room and kill you that night? My father told me that I would have to come out of that room tomorrow, and first thing I did was tell him on Sunday morning. First thing he did was tell Lyle on Sunday morning about it. I made the choice of not calling him on the phone because it would ring throughout the house, including their bedroom, and I didn't want to do that. Did you feel that your brother's life was possibly in danger that evening? I don't remember thinking that. I just remember thinking that if I came out of that room, I was in trouble. I'm not talking about coming out of the room. I'm asking you, did you feel that your brother's life was possibly in danger that evening? No, that thought was never in my mind that I remember. Why did you feel that your brother was not in danger? Objection calls for speculation. Overruled. I didn't feel that he was or wasn't. I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on me. It might have been very selfish, but that's what I was understanding. I was looking out towards his guest house. I spent a long time looking towards his guest house. I suppose if I saw my father walking past the pool towards the guest house, I would have called out or called to him, but I was just focused on what was happening to me, and I didn't think about Lyle being in danger. Did you remain looking out that window to see if your father was going to go towards the guest house to get Lyle that evening? I remember walking into the bathroom. I remember walking into my room, just walking around, not being able to sit still, looking out at the guest house. I didn't just stay in one place. So you weren't carefully watching to see if your father was on his way to the house, were you? No, I was not. You loved your brother very, very much. And you were thought that you were in the same situation with your brother. That is, that both of your lives were in danger. Yes. And you didn't think it'd be a good idea to tip your brother off as to what was happening in your room. It would have been a great idea if I had thought about a way to do it. There wasn't a way that I could think to do it. And I was so focused on what was happening with me that I couldn't think past that. Well, you could do it back just by picking up the phone and calling him, couldn't you? Yes, and I could have done that and it would have rang in their bedroom and didn't want that. It didn't want to do that. Well, at that point, Mr. Menendez, what did you have to lose? You felt that your father had been banging on the door to either R you or kill you, which you felt was essentially the same. Is that correct? Objection, it's argumentative. Sustained. You felt that your father had been banging on the door to either R you or kill you. Is that correct? Pretty much that's what I thought. Okay, and did you feel that there would be now some additional danger if you were to make a phone call to your brother? No, I didn't even take it that far. Why not? Objection calls for him to speculate. Overruled. I just thought about picking up the phone and that it would ring throughout the house, and I wasn't going to do that. And if it rang throughout the house, that means your father would pick it up, right? That's what I thought, either my father or mother. If your father picked it up, then he would learn something that he already knew, which was that he was banging on the door. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Mr. Khan says, so you made no mention of this until the next morning to your brother. Is that correct? Vague about what this is, says Mr. Levin. The court says sustained. Mr. Khan says, did you at any point let your brother know what had happened to you prior to seeing him the next morning? No, I did not. Does the court wish to stop at this time? The court says, all right, we'll resume at 1:30. Don't discuss this matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. We'll see you back here at 1:30. And that is where we are going to end. So, we will continue right where we left off, all of this badgering of the witness, I think. A lot of the same questions over and over again. He's still doing it. We talked about that last episode that he just keeps asking these same questions over and over again, expecting different answers, but Erik has been consistent in all of his answers. He's not changing his answers. So even though he's being asked the same question multiple times in different ways and having to answer it in all these different ways, he's being very consistent in his answers. So I think that's showing really well for his testimony. All right. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Take care. Bye now. That's the end of this Trial Transcripts Exposed. Thanks for following along with me. Like if you want more, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time.